My father always thought that my 5-year-old sister was the cause of my mother's death. When my sister called me dad at a birthday party, my father was extremely angry. I, 24, am the older brother of my younger sibling, 5. I was always the one who had to care for my sister. For the purpose of privacy, I'll name her Belle. My parents had me as a teenager. They were 15 and 16 at the time, and even as a child, I could tell they regretted having me. My mother and father were almost completely disowned by their families after I was born. My mother had to drop out of high school to care for me, and my father worked 2 jobs to make ends meet. Even yet, they couldn't afford a house. They stayed with my mother's older sister until I was 9 years old, after which my father obtained his GED, found a better job, and moved us out. Despite the fact that our living circumstances had improved, it was evident to me that they thought I had ruined their lives. When I misbehaved like a normal child, they would point out that they had given up their lives for me, and I still had the audacity to act this way. Even when I never misbehaved, they never showed me much love. I rarely received new stuff. They would get my items from Goodwill and almost never bought me anything good unless absolutely necessary. My birthdays were always celebrated to the bare minimum. They'd get me a cupcake and a solitary gift. Nothing I wanted. Despite everything, I was still a child who desired their love, but as I grew older, I came to recognize that I would not get it and made peace with it. I believe when my parents realized I had given up on them, they, mostly my mother, began to treat me better, but I was no longer the child who pleaded for their affection. I had never received my parents' love and I was done asking for it. Although I can't say I continued to hate them, my feelings toward them shifted to neutral. In my opinion, we were virtually strangers. I never actually got to know them because they raised me with the bare minimum, never had genuine talks with me and never spent quality time with me. They also knew nothing about me, so their sudden attempt to play parents with me was awkward, to say the least. When I was 18, my mother became pregnant, and I believe they gave up on trying to work things out with me in order to have a new child to start over. They did not mistreat me again, but it felt as if we were strangers living in the same house. When I was 19, my mother gave birth to a girl, but owing to complications she died. This devastated my father. Not only did he start to resent me for not being as sorry as he was about her death, she was hardly a mother to me, so there wasn't much to be sad about, but he also blamed his daughter for killing his wife. Following the incident he never returned home, leaving me to care for my sister. I had to take a vacation from college after returning home from school to find my sister wailing with hunger in an unaltered diaper while my father was out drinking. I took care of Belle full time and called my father several times, but he always got upset and concluded the conversation by stating I could leave Belle at the fire station. I eventually gave up on pressing him to become a father. Despite everything, I truly adored Belle. She was the sweetest, cutest child. She was virtually always happy and, amazingly, slept through the night when she was old enough. I enrolled her in daycare and pursued my schooling while working the night shift. I always made sure to leave a substantial amount of my afternoons free so that I could spend time with her. She had always known who her real father was, and as she grew older, she began to try to spend time with him. I guess she started following him around the home, but that quickly ended when he blew out on her, and she began to fear him. I realized she considered me as a father figure, despite the fact that she knew I was her brother. When she was old enough for preschool, I discovered she was telling others I was her father. I never mentioned it to her and waited until she brought me her Father's Day card from preschool. I then informed her that she may call me Dad if she wished, and she has since called me Daddy. My father eventually got a lover and started to transform himself. He quit drinking, got a better job, and even started taking over the majority of the bills, with the exception of the fraction I agreed to pay to be here. He never really tried to be a parent to Belle. He did begin to eat breakfast with us, but it was spent in silence except for me and Belle conversing. Fast forward to a few months ago, on Belle's birthday. I'd organized a party for her and invited her preschool classmates. My father ended up attending, perhaps because his fiancée thought it would be a good opportunity to meet his daughter. She was the one who seemed thrilled to be there. Anyway, while Belle was receiving her presents, I surprised her with one of those kids' electric cars. She screamed and hugged me, saying how much she loved me and calling me Daddy. After the party, when Belle was deep asleep, my father asked me what the hell happened. I was perplexed until he roared, questioning why his kid was calling me Daddy. I questioned him if he really didn't understand why and informed him that I was the one who raised her. I got her everything. I celebrated her firsts. I was the one who did not leave her. He remained quiet and went to bed. Since then, he's attempted to act like a father and talk to her, but he's a stranger. She was a sweet girl, so she listened to my father's chat, but he could sense she was uncomfortable, and it was evident that wounded him. Despite how selfish it is, I do not want their relationship to improve. After all, she saw me as her father, and I saw her as my daughter. I graduated college and am seeking for a better job so that Belle and I may move into our own home. I may be a bad person for relishing my father's agony and regretting the fact that he ruined his chances of having a relationship with his daughter, but I will never be as awful as him. Edit, thank you for all of your help and advice. As others mentioned, I may delete this article soon to avoid my father finding out before I am prepared for the custody battle. I will follow the advice you offered me. I know it was hazardous to publish it here since people might find out, but I'd never had someone to talk to about it before, so it felt good to be able to get it all out for the first time. Story 2. My wife once told my AP, "I'd rather be 80-year-old me than 20-year-old you." And that statement bothers me to this day. My wife and I were high school sweethearts. We're both 40 and have been together for 25 years. We have 2 children together, aged 5 and 6. For the past 5 years, I had assumed that we are together because we grew up together. I met my now girlfriend, who is 28. I realize I'm 12 years her senior, but we met at work. She's lovely and attractive, and I believe she was the new change I needed. Rather than breaking up with my ex and doing the right thing, I cheated and was caught. My wife was really kind about it. She did not want us to be together anymore. A year ago I moved out of our house and rented an apartment. We have yet to begin divorce proceedings, though I do not want to. Neither of us was discussing it. My girlfriend, on the other hand, is not pleased, owing to the fact that I left our large house, which was initially mine, to my wife and 2 daughters. I inherited it from my grandparents, and it is currently worth a lot. My partner says it's my family home, and I agree. My family lives there. But my girlfriend meant that if we split, my wife has no right to the house. 3 weeks ago, my girlfriend and I were dropping off our girls with their mother when she went against my wishes and started chatting to my wife about the house. My wife was perplexed and stated that the house is hers and her daughter's, and she looked at me, puzzled. But my girlfriend informed her that it was mine and it was time to move on. My wife then suggested that my girlfriend get involved in other people's affairs. My girlfriend became enraged and claimed that my wife is a hag who is bitter because she is elderly. My wife laughed and asked, "Is your age your sole redeeming factor? Because that will not last." Then she claimed she'd rather be 80 years old than my girlfriend, who is 20 years old. She was neither angry nor resentful. She isn't old either, she's 40, like me. Am I that old? According to my girlfriend, she is also incredibly gorgeous. I'm not sure what my girlfriend was thinking. I felt ashamed and angry at myself. My girlfriend was immature and embarrassing. I've been miserable for months, but if I end it, I'll have wounded my family for nothing. My wife called the next day and suggested we start talking about divorce. I burst into tears as soon as the phone ended. Now, every time I see her, I want to cry in her arms, simply thinking of 80-year-old her and 80-year-old me beside her. The way we imagined ourselves every time we saw an older couple holding hands or kissing, and we assumed this would be us too. I realized I'd rather have her at 80 than anyone at 20 years old, but I'd gotten it wrong.